So here we are at the fairy pools on the Isle of Skye, a well-known location for the tourists. We've managed to avoid the tourists though by coming down into the water. We've got a fabulous location. The first of the fairy pools is wonderful crystal clear water. That's what makes it really famous, but it is a series of pools reaching all the way up to the mountains. So I'm going to start off. I've got a nice black sheet of sanded paper called SAIT P500, and I'm going to quickly sketch out the scene using a white pastel. I want to get the very tops of the mountains in just to give a sense of scale, but in order to get the whole scene in this nice square format, I am probably going to reduce the size of the mountain somewhat. But artistic license always applies, and we're not going to be that far off really, because I want to get enough of the water into the scene to give it the impact. So, and there's a nice little road that leads up, which is going to help lead the eye through the scene. And then these rocks, I'm just going to quickly map the rocks with purple pastel, just to give an indication of where everything is, and then white and some blue for the water. Make sure we get in some of these lovely boulders in front of us. Go back with the purple for these. And of course the foreground foliage, the greens, again are going to really make this picture sing. And the purples and the blues of the rocks set against the orange and russets of the heathers and grasses on the bank, really going to make this picture work. I'm just going to quickly put in some of that colour, that orangey yellow, which seems to be so much of a feature of Skye from what we've seen so far. And some green near the rocks, mixture of yellows and oranges. And that's going to work really nicely against the really dark darks of the mountains behind. That mountain's in deep shadow, and you'll see the clouds are really misting over the tops. We've been very lucky today with the weather. It was forecast for rain, but it's pretty much held off. But it has left this mistiness in the clouds. There's a really lovely muted green in that distant mountain. Gets more accentuated as we come over to the left-hand side. And then it goes deeper and deeper into shadow over on the right. So I'm just dragging a dark blue, dark purple pastel over that green. And just doing that just softens the coloration and throws the mountain into the distance. So I'm just going to drag the pastel over that dark indigo, just to indicate the mist falling over the mountain. But I do also want to see the tops. I just move this up so it gets a nice clear sky against the top of the mountain. So let's make more of these oranges. There's a little bit in the background as well. And then this ridge that we are standing underneath, reaching down to the rocks. Just being really quite intuitive with the strokes, using the pastel on its side, and letting the pastel run over the colours that have already been applied, and also using the black of the paper. There's a slight hint of red in this pastel. It's like a pinky red, and again I'm using that really as a mid-tone, as a grey, to indicate that rear mountain. I say rear, it's actually in front of the main one behind it. There we go. bring it into other parts. So back to the foreground and our oranges, and there's greens as well on the rocks here. So that green is going to work really nicely with the orange. That's something of a complementary. Reaches up the blanks, just using the pastel on its side, blocking it in. And it's nice to leave these blocking marks. Gives something of an impressionistic feel to the painting. Just going to put a little bit more of this green into the background. It's just, the light is highlighting that quite nicely at the moment, and I think that really works really well. Dragging the pastel down to give a sense of scale and height. So I don't want too many horizontal strokes, maybe the odd one or two just to give a bit of interest, but get that height in the mountain. And I'm making quite a hard edge here just to show that it's the top of the bank. And this crosses over here. And it's slightly darker behind. So I'm just going to throw that back with that muted reddy pink colour. I really want to create some lost and found with these mountains, and the tops just peeking out through the mist and then being lost again. Really effective. So down here it's quite a flat light, so there's a lot of darks in here, but with the rocks, the tops of the rocks are catching some light, so we can make something of that. And together also, of course, with the water. So let's just indicate where the water is going to be flowing before we lose that. It's coming down here, and then pools here in between the rocks. Just want to try and get that progression, so the eye is coming down from the bottom, coming round, and then leading up towards the mountains. There is actually a pathway here as well, I think I mentioned that. Just indicate that. There we go. And then water down here between the rocks. So some brighter colours in amongst the grasses. It's really helping bring the foreground towards us. Just pressing the pastel a bit harder though as I come nearer the foreground, just to make the scene sing a little bit more as we come towards the viewer. So let's play a little bit more with the darks and light for the rocks down here. So a combination of an indigo, a light blue and an off-white. I'm going to use all three interchanging to sort of create the rock formations. Using nice linear strokes, that flattens out, gives a sense of flat rocks and then dropping rocks, you know, less in the direction of the stroke, indicates the formation of the rocks. So we need to try and make sure that we delineate between the rocks and the water. So I'm using a blue to start off with, and then a purple. And I'm just going to work negatively around some of the rocks. That'll help again to define them. So you're putting a dark behind the bright tops of the rock. Just putting in some extra darks around where the water is cascading down, just so that we can make a feature of that. So I'm just going to introduce a little bit of yellow-green into the sides of the rocks. Just adds a bit of interest, a little bit of change in colour, but it's still quite muted. And still interspersing that with this dark indigo. And there's a lot of dark just at the bottom of the bank. So back to the rocks, using the side of the pastel to block them out. Got this off yellow-green. It's a very flat light today, so we don't really have the tops of the rocks being in full sunlight, but I will just put a little bit of light lines across the tops that just helps to define them. And there is a little bit of light falling on them. So we're creating a really nice, I think, impressionistic rendition of this scene. Being nice and quick and intuitive. And that energy, I think, is just making it a really nice, expressive painting. Just putting a few hints of a kind of rose red, just to help lift the greens and the oranges. Just a few hints here and there. Doesn't take much. I just want to make some horizontal strokes in the water, just to accentuate the flatness of the pool around here. I'm using a purple at the moment, but I'll work back into it with different colour. So we get the idea of the water cascading down and then into this flat pool. Just using a light 1 pastel, so basically white, to find where the froth is cascading around the rocks. Make some nice watery lines. Again, all just to indicate water. So I'm not trying to draw every single rock that I see. I'll be here all day doing that. But just the ones that my eye is falling on, so the principal ones. I'm just getting the right sort of colours. There's actually a sort of greeny yellow tinge to some of the rocks from the mosses that have grown on them. Just looking for where there's colour in the landscape. And again, that's one of the main reasons for standing in front of the landscape rather than just relying on photographs. Because a photograph just isn't going to show you all the myriad of colour that the eye can see. It really is so important, certainly to me, to try whenever possible to be painting outside in front of the subject rather than from a photograph. But of course, once I've gone so far with a painting outside, I will take a photograph so that I can use that as reference to complete back in the studio. But as I always say, the fact that I've been standing here in front of the scene will remind me of what it is that really attracted me to the scene in the first place. And I'll be reminded of all those colours that I saw that I can't see on the photograph. I'm going to introduce some pink, having said that. So I can see some pink in the background. Just helps to warm things up a little bit. Where the light is catching. It's the late afternoon light now casting a nice haze on the mountains in the background. And little hints of it are reaching down here into the water. So I'm taking the pink down into the water. Just bringing this dark of the bank right up to the tops. And then if I lighten a little bit the mountain behind, which is what's actually happening at the moment, again, that will help to define the difference between the bank and the mountain. There we are, that's better. Back to the rocks. So you'll see that I'm darting around the paintings. Just it's one of the things that happens, I suppose, when I'm painting outside. You know, I see a moment of light, you know, making a particular coloration on something in the landscape, whether it's the grasses or the rocks, and I go straight in there with the pastel just to capture that moment before I lose it. Like the pinks in this rock here, and carry that through to other places, other rocks. So I've got a dark brown to indicate some of the shadows in the water. It's kind of orangey, really the reflection of the oranges from the foliage coming into the water. It's turning dark brown. And then intersperse that with some white for the ripples of the water on top. Just rolling the pastel over the paper to just let the pigment sit where it wants to. So it gets really dark by the sides, and then we can go light against dark with some water and maybe indicate another rock, catching the top. So I'm just putting a few more rocks into the water and using it as a way again of mimicking the S shape in the water. The location of these rocks again is going to draw the eye through the painting. So I'm just going to put in some details now. So some grasses in this orange in the foreground, using the darks. So I'm stroking against the darks. The dark purples to leave an indication of grasses, both on that side and down here. I'm not following what's in front of me exactly, I'm just using it as inspiration. There is a really nice tree, or the remnants of a tree there. I'm not sure if that's going to be too jarring on the senses, or if it's even going to be seen with the madness of these strokes, but we'll put it in, and if it doesn't work, then we can, of course, just take it out again. So this white, it's like the remnants of a mini silver birch. Just let it move into the darkness of the mountain behind. And we'll put a little bit of shadow in. So we've got a really nice rowan tree, which I'm going to put here. This might make the picture a bit too twee, because we've got our silver birch or whatever it is here, and another smaller tree here. That might just look a bit contrived, even though it's nature that's done it. Nothing to do with me. And a little bit of red for the rowan berries. Which is quite nice against the green in the background. Yeah, I think that's quite nice. I think we'll leave that for the moment. This is one of these things that, you know, you leave the painting for a period of time and come back to it and look at it again. You think, oh, you know what, not sure about that tree, and then, well, just take it out. That's what we can do with pastel. So again, I will leave that and look at it again in a little while and decide whether I'm going to take that out. I think that's okay though. So this has been super quick. Well, we've only been painting for about 45 minutes, but you'll see the beauty of what pastel can do in a really, really short time. I really recommend, please get your pastels, your Unison pastels, and get outside in front of the subject. Find a friend, go outside, enjoy nature and your pastel painting, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you very much.